this is primarily about disclosure of advertising content. So why should you disclose? Well, obviously, honesty is always the best policy. Influencers, media and brands all need their content, however it's created, to be trusted, to be effective. If it's not trusted, it won't be effective, and that will impact on reputation. It'll impact on the bottom line. And so for us, we would always say transparency is absolutely the best way to go. The rules about disclosure are not new, and I know that some people feel that it's just something that's come in the last couple of years because of the way influencer content has taken off. The ASCI code has been in place since 1981, and there have been disclosure rules for all media. It's not just influencers. We didn't create the rule for influencer content. But not only has the ASCI code been in place since 1981, there's an international code of marketing that's been in place, I think, for 80 years now. And there's always been the concept, if it's commercial, you must tell people that they are being advertised to. I mean, that's it at its basic. But there's also the Consumer Protection Act of 2007 also has very strict rules about unfair practices to consumers. And as was mentioned by Paul, Consumer Protection Law, EU Protection Law, and this Consumer Protection Act is based on the EU Unfair Commercial Practices Directive. It puts consumers at the centre. It expects people who are in the business of being in business that they will protect consumers. So that's the context of why you should disclose. We're going to talk about labels and what labels to use and where to put them. But first of all, just a quick quiz. 3 pieces of content. Are any, all, or none compliant? So I'm just going to ask, if you think content A is compliant, can you raise your hands? Only. B. Okay, A. B. C. Well done. It is C, and it's because it's got the hashtag ad at the beginning. This one is an affiliate, but it doesn't say hashtag ad. There should be a hashtag ad there. And this one, linked AF ad, no hashtag, but it should be at the very beginning. So the main thing about the rules are it has to be at the beginning. You need a label if there's any element of commerciality to it. So if you are a content creator and you have been absolutely paid to do something, obviously it's commercial. If you're a brand ambassador, any content you publish about the brand that you're a brand ambassador for is commercial, including the ones that are outside of the absolute contract. It's all commercial. You're acting as a trader is what you would be doing under the Consumer Protection Act. If you have been given benefit in kind, so I'll write a nice piece for you and you'll give me some free product or you'll give me a reduced price, then it is commercial. If you've been given something free and there's no obligation to do anything about it, to write about it, but you do write about it, then you have to use hashtag gifted because you're acting as a trader for the purposes of the Consumer Protection Act. So basically, if there's any element of commerciality, you need to think, do I need to label? And it's really important for the brands that you are working with. It's important for media brands, for companies to ensure that the people that they are working with don't damage their reputation either by not using appropriate labels. And where to put them, we have some nice tools on our website. We'll take you through a list of questions and help you decide whether you need to label or not. There's also the guidance, so that's on adstandards.ie. I would suggest that you do actually download it if you are creating content and need to decide whether or not you need to put a label on it. 3 primary labels: hashtag ad, hashtag gifted, or the platform provided label, so Instagram paid partnership. You must include a primary label and it must be first. It must be the most prominent. And you must also check when you've posted your content that actually the tools or the features of the social media don't obscure it. Because that's something that we've had where someone has posted something that looked perfectly fine before they posted it. But actually, by the time it was up and what consumers were seeing, it wasn't compliant with the code. And I think it's that piece again of always looking at something through the consumer lens, through your followers lens. What do they see? Not what you intended them to see, but what do they actually see in practice? You can also use a secondary label if you want to make it, give a bit more context, if it's your own brand or if you're a brand ambassador, but you must use the primary label. And where you put it is really important. At the beginning, must have the hashtag, and if it is expiring media so that it's going to disappear after 24 hours, it must be on every single piece of the content, not just at the beginning, not just at the end. And some examples very quickly. This one has no primary label, and it was based on a piece of example that was a story, and it should have been on every single piece. This one, no primary label, hashtag collab, it's at the end. People have to read all the way down to see it, and it doesn't, you can use the collab, but you can't use it without the primary label. This one, it does say ad, but you can't see it. So there's no point if you can't see it. But it also doesn't say hashtag, and it's not at the beginning of the content. And this one again, no primary label, no platform provided label. A same problem here. So these examples were all based on real examples that we we have a social media reporting form. The interest in disclosure and influencers disclosing their content has not abated, it is increasing. We are receiving thousands of notifications over the last number of months about content that consumers don't think actually is disclosing properly that it's commercial content. In the 12 months, just over 12 months to December, we received notifications about just under 1,000 influencers. Now, in most cases, it was one notification about one influencer. So for our perspective, we don't think that is showing a great deal of harm. But we are seeing multiple notifications about other influencers. We have adjudicated through complaints recently. We released a complaints bulletin, our decisions in December, and we released more just about 2 weeks ago or last week. I guarantee you they're all covered by the news media. Somewhere they will be covered. So if you are a brand working with a content creator, if you are a content creator, and you don't want to see your name in a headline saying so-and-so failed to disclose properly or misled their followers, make sure you always consistently disclose. The regulatory interest will continue from us, from the EU Commission, very interested in this space. They are, introducing a Digital Fairness Act. The UCPD also covers this area. They have set up their own particular knowledge hubs to try and help influencers disclose properly. So it is an area of increased regulatory interest. And also the CCPC here in Ireland, the Competition and Consumer Protection Commission. We worked with them on the latest version of the guidance, which is out now about 18 months. And we will be doing a data sharing agreement with them, where we will be sharing with them the data we have on the influencers who are most notified. This is not to scare people, but it is actually damaging the industry itself when there is a low level of compliance. It's really important. So I would absolutely, encourage everyone to, if you see your peers not doing it right, don't call, I'm not saying call anyone out publicly, but have a word with them and say, this is what you need to do. We do actually have guidance, and we are happy to give guidance on individual pieces of content. So adstandards.ie, you can find out information. And finally, you would say, why invite reputational damage? It's easy. This is not rocket science in order to disclose. And don't forget, this is just about disclosure that I'm talking here. If you're creating commercial content, you have to follow the other advertising rules as well. Generally, don't mislead. Make sure if you're making claims that require substantiation, if you say a product does something, does your client have the evidence to show? You don't have to prove it if you're an influencer, but if you have to ask your client, do you have the evidence? So what I would say is, think about your brand, think about your reputation. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you, Orla.